connections team, let me back up a second, actually. I don't know whether this is actually the case, but I sense a little bit of, I think there might be a little bit of angst of people who serve on the connections team thinking, are you expecting me now with kind of the response room connections teams kind of coming together to like pray with people and like do crisis counseling and things like that, because I don't want to do that. And maybe there's some people on the response room team who are thinking, I really don't want to be like the hype man for guest services and connections out on the front. I really don't like iPads, and they're all using iPads right now. We're not, that's not going to happen. You don't need to worry about that, right? You don't want to be there's always going to be a response room team and a connections team. We just want to work really closely together, right? Yeah. And the goal, maybe not initially, but as we go throughout is, there are some people in the response room team who love welcoming people, and you love having that cheery, exciting attitude. There's some people in the connections team who wouldn't mind saying a quick prayer with someone or something like that. And it can be growing and stretching for everybody. And so kind of the goal is to be kind of cross-functional and trained, but there's still always going to be crisis counseling. That's a unique set of people with giftings and talents and passions, like kind of what I mentioned before. And so that was giving you anxiety, just let that kind of melt off. There's not going to be any crazy expectation in that. We're just going to work really closely together, and then there'll be some bleed over and kind of cross-functionality too that we can kind of get towards. But for the sake of easiness, I'm just going to refer to everything kind of crisis counseling and the high top tables at the front piece as connections team, and then you all can kind of be subsets between us, so don't be confused by that. But kind of in this relaunch, refocus of our connections team, kind of our win, as we've stated, is the goal of the connections team is to help those looking to connect take their best next step, right? That space where the high top tables are in Welcome Center A and B, we want to be a launching destination for people to launch people on towards their next step and on a pathway of growth. Okay, so that's kind of the win that we've kind of been approaching this whole process in. Really quickly, the why behind the what, all these changes that we're doing, why are we kind of doing them? It's kind of built around these two ideas. There's other reasons, but God is sending thousands of people, that's not an exaggeration, thousands of people to visit our church for the first time every year. And that number, is backing out the large number who are here just because they happen to be at Disney this weekend and are coming down because they've seen us on TV. But a very large number of people coming locally who are looking for a church to belong in. And the existing pathways to connect people were both obscured and complicated, right? It was very hard. People who've been serving at Connections before, Betsy can tell you, there's just, the ways to connect people are not as easy as they should be. It's been challenging, it's been difficult. A brand new person shows up and they're going to hear, a lot of times, you're kind of studying this in the worship service, they were going to hear, hey, you can go back to the response room if you want prayer or counseling. You can go out to a welcome center if you want information about groups. You can go to a New Year tent if you're brand new. And maybe for whatever special event we're kind of emphasizing, you can go back to the gathering place and see what's going on back there, right? I'm a brand new person. I'm sitting in church. I don't know the difference between a room, a place, a lobby, and a tent, right? They're four geographic opposite corners of our building. And they're all very highly specialized places, right? So if someone showed up at the response room and said, how do I get connected to a small group? You might be like, I think you're supposed to talk to somebody else about that, right? And if someone showed up at a Welcome Center lobby and said, hey, I need some prayer, got some stuff going on, they'd be like, oh gosh, you have to go into the back hallway, the hidden room, that you'll never find your way out and so that's just creating a hindrance, right? And when people hear a multiplicity of options, this just goes back to the psychology of the way people think and behave, and they're not saying that, but the more options a person hears, the more they start getting confused, and they're more likely to do nothing than do anything, right? And so we want to create it says here, so connections in terms, an area inside of Welcome Center A and B that has been redesigned and equipped to help people take their best next step, the weekend destination, right? So we want to create one place that that becomes so ingrained in the language. You may have noticed in the bulletin, as I was talking through the platform, Connections is like 2 or 3 spots on the bullet. It's everything that we talk about. Hey, you can go to Connections to do this. You can go to Connections to do this. It's trying to create this spot where people know, even like, hey, I want to get involved. Oh, I go to Connections. And the reason we chose the lobbies that are there is because it's smack dab in the middle of people's walking patterns, right? There's no way to not see it. A lot of people that are unconnected to the church that maybe attend here, they're going in and out from their cars in the parking lots that are facing those 2 openings. So we want to make it highly visible, very easy for them to just stop by on their way out really quick, be able to connect with someone, and then be set up for their next step. Okay, so some real quick terms: Connections, already went over that. Starter groups you're going to hear, and Discover you're going to hear in the next few minutes. Starter groups are a 4-week on-campus group experience designed to help launch both on and on-campus groups. Daryl, did I do okay with that?
On and off. On and off
yeah,
campus.
On and on, yeah. On and on campus groups. Now I did this late at night. On and off campus groups. And there's more that goes into that, but that should suffice to give you an understanding. Discover is a 60-minute event experience that sets up a 2-week essentials series designed to helping people connect to groups and serving, right? So starter groups happen ongoing throughout the year every week. Brand new, very excited about this. Discover happens 3 to 4 times a year, depending on what's going out on in the calendar. Launches people into groups, and serving. Also goes over gospel, baptism, helping people become members if they want. This is like the one-stop shop to help people take their steps, but set up in a really kind of easy way for them to be able to do that. So there's some key terms you'll hear. In Connections, response room, now that there's so much going on there, everything's being relocated to Connections. It can be really overwhelming to know, okay, I have a person, what do I do with them? So I'm going to take the next 5 minutes or so, 7 minutes maybe, and just fly through 5 types of people I think you'll be encountering, right? So you can quickly categorize people and help them figure out their step. This is all about where are people at, what is their best step, how can I help them take that. So that's what I'm going to cover in the next few minutes. Again, you'll get all this in emails and stuff, but want to be able to talk through that. So the first type of person is someone who wants to connect to the church, right? This is the person who's wanting to connect to the church and isn't sure what step to take. Their best next step, so look at this, is to register for Discover and connect to a starter group, right? So the way that's phrased like that, you can help them take these steps using the iPad form that says Next Steps, right? So Discover only happens 4 times a year. But in it, they're going to hear the gospel and a chance to baptize and all these other steps. But we can't let someone sit around for a few months, right? We want to get them connected quickly. The best way for them to do that is to be involved in a starter group. But using the same form, the Next Steps form, they can register for the next Discover event. That will just give them some information about it and let us follow up them as they get closer. And then they can be taken immediately to a starter group. And that's the best way for someone who's looking to connect to the church to get involved. Okay, second type of person is a brand new guest. This person is just learning the ropes, and we're trying to earn their second visit and make a personal connection. So you have them complete a new guest card, give them a guest bag, and invite them to come back next week. Right? We're not trying to take a person who's here on their very first visit and sign them up for all the events the church is doing and get them involved in all these things. That tends to just scare people off. Right? And so all of these different people are coming back. By the way, Connections, you can go there at the beginning of service or before a service, but it is being designed primarily as the way to respond following the service. It's an after the service destination primarily. And so you're going to have new guests and all of these people coming up, and we just want you to know, let me figure out who this person is, what they're kind of looking for, and then help them know that step. Okay, they need help. So this person is looking for prayer and counseling. Determine if the person is looking for a brief encouragement and prayer. If yes, feel free to meet the need yourself. So in the new kind of paradigm, there's some people who just after service, they're just, hey, I've got this going on, would someone just pray with me really quickly? And that's a good thing. That's something if we're out of the high top tables, which kind of there will be a blend between with our sponsor people. I think Jeff is saying some people will be right outside the door, some people inside or something as that works. And we can be able to offer those quick prayers and encouragements with people right there to be able to do that. And then if the person needs crisis counseling or just in-depth, they're very emotional, have a lot of stuff going on, there will be a space in Connections where we can have those kind of conversations, or, and I'll get into this later, but nearby where we can do those more private conversations with crisis support team, existing response room counselors and people like that. And then requests for financial support can be directed to the Grace Ministry area and the Ministry Connect space. So beginning in November, when we're kind of going forward with this merge, Grace Ministry requests, benevolence requests won't have to be fielded by people in connections or the response room. They're going to have their own team of people who are in the bump out room right outside of the gathering place, so that we can focus on helping people take their next steps and spiritual conversations and things like that. We want to have a place for those people that is really important, but that will be in the gathering place, kind of that bump out room that's opposite of lawns, the opposite side of the lawn. So you can direct people there, and they've got all the forms and the information about that to help them. I think we're on to the fourth type of person. So they know their step, person knows their step, they know exactly what they're looking for, be it a small group, serving team, or specific ministry, or an event. If they haven't been to a Discover event, sign up using Next Steps form. If they're looking to serve, have them complete the serve form on the iPad. And if they want to be baptized, if they're looking for a starter group, taking the starter group and complete the Next Steps form. If they want to be baptized, so baptism is going to be a form on an iPad. You might have one back in a response room or something like that. It's really easy. We can counsel people for baptisms on the weekend, but in talking with Jeff, we feel like it's not always easy for a pastor to be able to have that in-depth conversation with them or follow up with them. So we want to at least capture their basic information, and the pastor can contact them during the week. We're kind of experimenting with that. But there's a baptism form on there, and then this should say there's a form for membership that replicates the Next Steps card, that they can be able to do that as well. And then for anything else, have them complete the other form on the iPad. And I'll explain that on the next slide. That goes along with people that just want information about the church. This person has questions about the church or specific ministries and needs help getting answers. So basically what all this says is there's just too much information in a church this size for any one person to know what's going on all the time, right? I get asked questions all the time, and if anybody should know, it should be me. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is or where it is or when it's happening or who's involved, right? So I really don't expect my people at Connections and you all to know the answers to everything going on at the church on a weekend or at any other time, but you're going to get asked those questions every time, right? And I don't want to expect you to have to learn and keep up with all that stuff. So kind of the fix that we've got for this that we're experimenting with is on the iPad there'll be a little form that says Other, where you can just make a good personal connection with that person and just say, hey, what's your question? I don't know the answer to that, but I've got somebody who can get you an answer in the next 24 hours. And then you fill out this form, it'll ping directly to my email, and then I'll be able to figure out the information. Because if I don't know the information, I know who knows it, so I can get that and get it back to them quickly. So Jonathan and I will kind of field that stuff. And that'll help you not feel the burden of having to know everything that's going on at the church. Because you will get asked, and I don't want you to have that.
That's not on there yet, right? It'll be in
November. Not on there yet.
Start in November?
Yes, starting in November or sometime between there. This is all in November. Yeah. Same thing. Okay. Next Steps is going to combine Discover, groups, and serving, because a lot of times those steps happen together. So I have them put in their email and name and organize. So those are kind of 5 types of people. But initially, when they come up, even that's okay. What are you kind of looking for? The first thing, because we want you all to be able to, as a person's coming up, figure out what is it that a person is here for. Be able to do that in about 30 seconds or less, and then be able to identify and help them take their next step. And so the first question you can always ask yourself is kind of how we've been talking about this idea. Is this person needing a health club or a hospital? Okay? The health club, this person is showing up, and they want to know what the church is offering that can help them get healthy and get connected and get involved, and they're looking to take steps and get involved and have a personal trainer, coach, person coaching them through the process. Or does this person need a hospital? Right? They've got immense difficulties going in their life. They need encouragement. They're discouraged. They need prayer. They need the gospel. Like all of these intense things. And immediately, that simple question, if you can figure out this person needs health club or hospital, immediately is this something that I can deal with at a high top table, or is this something that needs to go back to the crisis counseling area? Right? If you can make that judgment in the first couple seconds. After that, okay, if it's health club, okay, are they wanting to connect? Are they a new person? Or they just have questions? Right? And so then you can kind of begin filtering. But it all starts with kind of this question that I think would be really easy. If we just angry, are they in health club or hospital? Health club or hospital? That will really help us kind of help you figure that out. Okay? This is kind of, obviously not exactly what the iPad looks like, but moving forward, we want to make this as simple as possible. So all the iPads will have 4 options, 4 buttons. Right there on the home page, you click one button to open the iPad, and then you can click one of those buttons, and that'll help that person take that step. And this is also, we can have a really quick ability to follow up with people who we give their information. Best chance they'll take a step is in the first 24 to 48 hours, so we need that contact information. We're trying to cut out having to take paper cards and input them into the system because that creates lags and all of that stuff. But really quickly, next step, baptism, membership, other, and then rotating special response. Sometimes they're being like, hey, someone can sign up for BBS, go by connections. Should never be more than 1, but whatever that is, you'll know about it, and it'll be on the iPad and kind of prep for that. I'm not going to fly through all this. Is kind of what we've been doing. We've kind of been in this process of relaunch since March, right before Easter, right? Repurposing the counters that were in the Welcome Center lobbies, and moving to high-top tables, facility connections. All these things is kind of where we're at right now. So November 3 and 4 is when we're kind of going to roll the response room team into connection space. There's going to be a new layout with iPads. Various ministry will be located in the Ministry Connect space, and there'll be some kind of interim solution for where we can best crisis counsel people. Phase 3, there's not an exact date on this. I'm getting updated stuff about it, but trying to fully redesign the connection space so that there's a good crisis counseling semi-private space right there in the lobby that you can begin connecting people with. That also includes more seating. I know we get dinged on not having enough seating in the lobbies a lot. It's going to have more seating, like permanent semi-private space for crisis counseling, and then permanent furniture and signage. A lot of what we have right now is temporary, kind of stopgap while we figure out. A lot of it is, once you guys get in there in the response room November 3 and 4, want to make sure, man, are we ordering what you actually need? And how is that kind of stuff kind of shaking out? What's the response flow like, and how does that stuff happen? So that you'll get more information about that. We're still kind of in a test phase. Yeah.
In the response room, we've been doing cards and stuff. Are we going to be getting iPads for that as well?
Yeah, so we're trying to combine paper cards. We won't eliminate them completely just because if the network ever goes down completely, we want to be able to have a backup of that to be able to still process people, help them take next steps. Trying to move more towards iPads, and you will have probably an iPad or 2 in the crisis counseling, but also things like people wanting to become members or wanting to take step of baptism. That's stuff that can be handled at the high tops as well. So we'll try to diffuse some of that stuff. And by the way, we're done, so if you need to go, I'm happy to answer as many questions as possible, but that's it for the